Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Lidar Greve-Lazian. Coming up in today's newscast. Israel launches an overnight strike in Gaza targeting Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists. Meanwhile, Israel's southern residents remain in bomb shelters. And tens of thousands of Israelis gather at Mount Meron to celebrate the festive Lag Baomer holiday. At about 2 a.m. overnight, some 40 Israeli jets struck Islamic Jihad targets in Gaza. 3 top terrorist leaders were eliminated in 3 separate strikes, all neutralized within moments of each other. The IDF has dubbed the Operation Shield and Arrow. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz has been following developments.
Overnight, the Israeli army launched Operation Shield and Arrow, with aircraft targeting and killing 3 senior members of the Islamic Jihad terror group in Gaza. The IDF began hitting targets in the Strip just after 2 a.m. in a coordinated surprise attack on the group's senior leaders. Explosions ripped through Gaza early Tuesday morning, days after the terrorist group had fired 104 rockets toward Israel. Several rockets struck Sderot during the May 2nd clash, injuring 3 workers and damaging homes and cars. At least 12 people were killed in this morning's bombing runs. At least 20 people were reported injured in the strikes. Those targeted included the group's top operational officer, Khalil Bat Itini, who commanded the Islamic Jihad in the northern Gaza Strip. Also killed were Jahed Aman, a top official in the military council, and Tariq Azaldin, who directed Islamic Jihad terror activities in Judea and Samaria. The IDF said Bahitini was entrusted with approving and carrying out all terrorist activities from northern Gaza, as well as planning and directing terrorist attacks on Israeli civilians and planned rocket attacks against Israel. Over the years, he was involved in terror activities against Israel, including suicide bombings, explosive attacks, rocket fire, and directing terrorist activities in Judea and Samaria. Anan was a key liaison for transferring money and weapons between the Islamic Jihad and Hamas. Azaldin had previously been jailed in Israel for involvement in suicide bombings in the early 2000s. 40 aircraft, including fighter jets, carried out the main strikes within seconds of each other at 3 different locations in the Strip. A military spokesman said the IDF had achieved its goals with the opening strikes and, if necessary, would deepen the attacks more and are prepared for any scenario. Witnesses said the initial attacks on Islamic Jihad leadership hit the top floor of an apartment building in Gaza City and a house in the southern city of Rafah. Dozens of strikes were reported across the Strip in the ensuing hours, sending fireballs skyward as the army targeted terror training sites. Anticipating a possible escalation, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant okayed the army to call up reserve troops as needed. Since pulling out of the Strip in 2005, Israel has fought 2 major ground wars with Gaza terrorists, as well as 2 air wars lasting at least a week, and several other limited clashes.
And joining us now with more on the operation in Gaza is Yoni Ben Menachem, expert on Palestinian affairs and a senior research fellow at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I think the question on everyone's minds is, are we headed now for a new conflict with Gaza?
We are heading, no doubt, towards another round of fighting with Gaza Strip. The problem with Gaza Strip is not going to be solved overnight, and actually, since the Israeli withdrawal from Gaza Strip and Hamas taking over the Gaza Strip 2007, we have ongoing conflicts, military confrontations with the terror organization in Gaza. The Israeli deterrence was eroded because of the wave of protests in Israel and because of the bad relations with the American administration, between the Netanyahu government and the Biden administration. And the terrorist organizations, they interpret what is happening in Israel as weakness and they think this is the right timing to attack Israel. So now Israel has to rebuild its deterrence, and actually this is the main reason for what we see now, the preemptive attack that Israel launched on Gaza Strip.
So certainly a first step towards reestablishing deterrence. This was a surprise, the preemptive strike against the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, not just for the terrorist organization, but also for many Israelis. I mean, what kind of response now should Israel expect in the coming days, if any?
We don't know exactly what is going to happen. The key question now is whether it will be a short round of fighting or a long and difficult round of fighting. The main question is whether Hamas will join the battle and help the Islamic Jihad attack Israel. If they do that, this means that we are going for a long round of fighting. It's not clear yet, but there's no doubt that there will be a retaliation because the Israeli operation was a success, and Israel has managed to assassinate the leaders of the military wing of the Islamic Jihad, and this is very significant. Some of these leaders were in charge of the rocket launching towards Israel and also organizing terror activities in the West Bank. So they cannot sit quietly. They will have to retaliate, and I think we can expect that in the coming hours, according to the estimation of the IDF.
Now, you mentioned Hamas, and their name has so far been omitted in the recent developments. But we're also hearing a lot of reports over the past several weeks of Iran's hand in all of the latest terror attacks and the threats against Israel. Iran has established a presence not only in Lebanon and in Syria, but also forging ties with Hamas and other Palestinian terror organizations, and now even with Jordan. I mean, how concerned is the Israeli security establishment with these latest developments and with Iran's involvement in this?
Very worried. What we see is what we call the axis of terror, the axis of evil, headed by Iran. Both Islamic Hamas and Islamic Jihad and Hamas are members of this axis. And this is the doctrine of Qasem Soleimani, General Qasem Soleimani, to strangle Israel with rockets attacks from different areas, multi-arena attacks from South Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Gaza Strip, and also West Bank with rockets and terror attacks. This is very worrying, and what we see now is another phase being implemented by the Islamic Jihad.
You know, and we've discussed this before on the show, and Gallant has said that the next escalation will be a multi-front war. I mean, so what is your take on this?
This is definitely possible because we saw during the month of Ramadan, after there were incidents in Al-Aqsa Mosque between the police and some rioters, we saw attacks from Gaza and then from South Lebanon and Syria, launching rockets towards Israel. This was all orchestrated by General Ismail Qaani, the head of Quds Force in the Revolutionary Guards of Iran. And this scenario can repeat itself now because they already announced that the future attacks will be not only from one front, from one arena, it will be multi-fronts, multi-arenas from different places in the Middle East. So I think that it will only be fair to assume that we are facing the same scenario.
Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that. Yoni Ben Menachem, thank you so much for your analysis today.